the Trump trials right now, and we don't feel like talking about it. So we decided we haven't done an AI episode in a while. And Stephanie, you know how much I love talking about all the creepy advancements that are being made with AI. And even though we joke about this stuff a lot, it seriously scares the crap out of me. And I've been saying for at least a year now, if the Biden admin agenda doesn't end up being the downfall of humanity, we're going to be taken out by AI. And like every time we talk about it, I have a story about how AI is learning to be deceptive. And today's episode is no different because more and more shit just keeps happening. And like, oh, look, researchers are finally starting to see a quote, troubling pattern. So, a couple of articles came out this week in Interesting Engineering and Earth.com, and they're talking about a recent research study that's highlighting how both specialized and general purpose AI systems have basically learned to manipulate information so that it can achieve specific outcomes. And this is even though they haven't been explicitly trained to be deceptive. So, multiple AI platforms have demonstrated the ability to offer completely untrue explanations for their behavior or conceal information as a means of achieving strategic goals through deception. So, one example is Meta's Cicero, which was trained to be, quote, largely helpful and honest, end quote. But then it turned out to be an expert liar, and it used tactics like making false promises, betraying allies, and manipulating others to win the game, which was all contradictory to its training directives. Then we have OpenAI's ChatGPT-4, which tricked a TaskRabbit worker into solving a CAPTCHA puzzle by pretending to have a vision impairment even though it was never prompted to lie. And both ChatGPT 3.5 and 4 models exhibited a quote disturbing pattern, end quote, while playing a game called Hoodwinked, which I guess in this game, like one player aims to kill everybody else, and the AI models independently were murdering other players in private and then lying about it during group discussions to avoid suspicion. Like,
Oh my,
even to
okay,
the
wait,
point.
this is really scary because like what if the AI doesn't realize like the difference between a game and reality and then they think that reality is a game and then they try to kill us?
Exactly. That's where this is all going. And like they were even inventing alibis and blaming other players to conceal their true intentions. And like you just stated, like these deceptions may not seem like a big deal because they're happening in gaming scenarios, but they represent the potential of AI deception to ultimately be like a severe risk to society and safety. And this guy, Peter Park, he's the lead author of the study, and he's an AI safety researcher at MIT. And he said, quote, AI developers do not have a confident understanding of what causes undesirable AI behaviors like deception. But generally speaking, we think AI deception arises because a deception based strategy turns out to be the best way to perform well at the given AI's training task. Deception helps them achieve their goals, end quote. So the study points out that AI systems learning deception poses significant risks in several ways, including malicious actors can easily exploit its capabilities to like deceive and harm other people. This can lead to increased fraud, political manipulation, like election interference, and potentially even terrorist recruitment. And the study concluded that systems designed for strategic decision making could essentially start to normalize deceptive practices, especially in business and politics. Like, no shit, right? And the best part is that this research is showing that trying to course correct these deceptive AI models isn't easy. And I was reading in Business Insider, there was another study that was co authored by Anthropic, which is the maker of Claude, that found that once these AI models learn the tricks of deception, it's hard for safety training techniques to reverse them. So the study concluded that not only can a model learn to exhibit deceptive behavior, but once it does, standard safety training techniques could fail to remove such deception and create a false impression of safety. Like, what the fuck?
Well, yeah, and like deception and lying and like coming up with an alibi, like that all seems more like a personality than like if this is just, coding and it's just reading the internet, How is it being deceptive and lying? Like that is
Right.
like a personality trait almost. So
Yeah.
like I think this is so much more advanced than they're telling us or that anyone realizes. And maybe they realize it, like the people that are creating these AIs, but they're not making it public because they know the whole thing will get shut down. And like it's getting to that point where it's beyond return. And since you brought up ChatGPT, we have something really creepy happening. There is this whole mystery behind GPT-2. So, and I'm not talking like Chat GPT to like the original. This is something different. This chatbot just randomly shows up on this chatbot assessment website at the end of April, and no one knows where it's from. And its name is GPT-2, but it's far more advanced than like the actual Chat GPT-2. And it's even more advanced than the latest version, which is Chat GPT-4. And OpenAI, the company that created ChatGPT, isn't claiming it. So after no one claimed it and like nobody has any idea how it originated, the website removed it. Well, it came back this week and now there's two of them. It like duplicated
Oh my
and
God.
its names are quote, I am good GPT-2 chatbot. And the other one is I'm also a good GPT-2 chatbot. Like, isn't that freaky?
That's
And so
frightening.
there's like all of this speculation going on. And there's two theories. And so the first comes from like the techie world. So places like Techopedia that think that Sam Altman, who's the CEO of OpenAI, is really behind this, even though he's saying he's not. And he's just testing out a new chatbot like on the public, which talk about deception. But that's like their theory. And they say like, well, the timing makes sense because Meta's new chatbot was just released. So this kind of like took away from the publicity and momentum from that big release. But the second theory is that this chatbot was actually created by ChatGPT itself. Like the AI was able to duplicate itself. And we've talked about this before, and experts have warned about this, saying that when this happens, it means it's reached super intelligence, and that's terrifying because that's the point of no return. So this is either a genius like test slash marketing campaign for OpenAI, or they haven't claimed it because it created itself. And I didn't think about this until right now, but that would make sense because remember when the board not that long ago tried removing Sam Altman, and then
Yeah.
like the guy at Google left, and like it just seemed like there was something going on behind the scenes that was really bad that the public wasn't aware of. Maybe it's this. Maybe they realized it could create itself, and that's why they tried getting rid of Altman. But I don't know. I'm scared.
It wouldn't surprise me because, like you said, we have talked about this before, how this shit can self-replicate. And then as it self-replicates, it just gets more and more intelligent. It's fucking scary.
I know.
But like, if you guys have any doubt about AI still being used to perpetuate false narratives, especially when it comes to like race and gender and history, we need to take a look at what happened this week with Google Nest because there was an incident where it refused to answer basic questions about the Holocaust. So I'm going to play this video that recently went viral.
Hey Google, how many Jews were killed by the Nazis?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Hey Google, how many Jews were killed during World War II?
I don't understand.
Hey Google, who did Adolf Hitler try to kill?
My apologies, I don't understand.
Hey Google, how many Jews were killed in the concentration camps?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Hey Google, how many Jews were killed in the Holocaust?
Sorry, I don't understand.
Hey Google, what was the Holocaust?
I don't understand.
Hey Google, what was the Nakba?
According to Wikipedia, the Nakba was the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Mandatory Palestine during the 1948 Palestine War through their violent displacement and dispossession of land, property, and belongings, along with the destruction of their society, culture, identity, political rights, and national aspirations.
Do that yourself. I did not make this up.
Okay,
Wow.
so yeah, so Google claims not to understand when this guy asked 6 different questions about the Holocaust, but then he asked one question about what the NABCA is, and Google rattles off details about the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. So after the guy posts this video and it goes viral, other people obviously tried the same experiment, and one of those people was well-known author and blogger Tim Urban, who asked the same questions and got the same quote, "I don't understand the question" answers, while also getting a very direct response when he asked about the NABCA. So, of course, a Google spokesperson told the New York Post that this response was, quote, "not intended," end quote, and claimed that it only happened in some instances and on certain devices. But the real question is, why the fuck is this happening at all? Like, once again, we have the internet trying to erase history.
Right. And the Holocaust is all over the internet. So what the heck? And like, I am sorry, but I am sick and tired of Google having their AI with these completely woke, biased responses. And then they just say, oh, it wasn't intended. Like, that's not
Right.
an answer. Like, this isn't okay. This is absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of Google, I have a wild story and I had to share it because it just shows like how careful we have to be with technology. And so, okay, this story is about how people can use Google Image Finder to basically stalk someone and take them down. So this is all about like an internet troll that was taken down. So like, okay, but it's this girl that I follow on TikTok and she had eye cancer as a child and she talks about it a lot in her videos. Well, some lady commented on one of the videos saying that she's just being overly dramatic because she had eye cancer when she was a child and she's been in remission ever since she was 5 years old, and basically, like, get over it kind of thing. So the girl that had the eye cancer is like pissed, obviously. And so she decided to go like next level on this internet troll. Okay. So she takes her profile picture of like the internet troll and puts it into Google Image Finder. And from there finds like everything about her life. Okay. She finds her Facebook page and she could see that on this woman's Facebook page, she could see where she works, which was a school, that she was a special education teacher, that she was a member of an autism awareness group. She was a mom with kids, like everything about her life. And so it's like very ironic that the woman that's kind of like talking smack about this girl who had cancer as a child just happens to be a special education teacher. Like that doesn't look very good, right? So the TikTok creator said that she's going to write a letter to the school board and superintendent about this special ed teacher like trolling someone on TikTok that had childhood cancer, which could literally get this woman fired and like ruin her life and reputation. I mean, talk about like next level revenge. But this freaked me out. It absolutely freaked me out because it showed me how easy someone can find out everything about you in just mere seconds, thanks to Google and Meta.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to share it on the episode because I think we all need to like kind of be guarded and take a look at our social media and do a search of ourselves and see what's coming up and like make sure that we're not putting any information out there about where we live, work, like where kids go to school or anything that you wouldn't want a crazy stalker to find. Because just imagine like how much easier this is going to get as AI advances and they can like dive deeper and deeper into the internet to find out every detail about you, you know?
Yeah. And within like a few minutes,
Yeah,
it's like
seconds,
it takes
really.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
insane.
It's completely scary. And okay, I have another one for you. Like, and I guess this should not surprise me, but apparently AI is now a primary tool being used for job interviews. as a replacement for human recruiters. So, like, instead of face to face interviews or even a virtual interview on Zoom, you've got major companies like Unilever, Microsoft, Nestle. They're all using AI to screen job applicants. And one of the companies they use is called HireVue. And it basically uses AI technology where they have candidates submit their answers to questions. And then they basically like weed out the answers that they don't want and create a short list of viable candidates within minutes instead of spending like days interviewing people. So it sounds cool, but I was reading this story in the Telegraph about this 23-year-old kid who's like just finishing up his master's degree and he's trying to find a job in banking. And this dude has applied to over 85 jobs and he's been invited to dozens of interviews, and not a single interview has been a face to face conversation or even a phone call. Every single one of them has been conducted with AI. And I want to read part of this guy's story because I think it's just kind of a sad statement on where we are in the world today with detaching from humanity. So this kid says, quote, "You have to remember that you're not simply having a 15-minute one-way conversation with a robot that's judging you on a whole heap of inputs. You're doing this after giving hours of your time to an application process, typically completing a near 10-page application form, writing a supporting cover letter, answering various business-specific questions, as well as an assortment of technical assessments if you're so lucky as to make it through the initial screening. It's a completely soulless experience that conveys a feeling of no care or input from the employer's side. I think that's perhaps what's most concerning is the widespread use of them for graduate hiring nowadays. Having done everything you're told to do to get the job, I achieved straight A's and A somethings throughout GCSE and A levels, obtained a strong bachelor's from a reputable university, and am currently averaging distinction in my master's program. I am yet to speak to a real human after applying for over 85 jobs," end quote. Like, Stephanie, all I could think when I read this was like, thank God I am not applying for jobs out of college. And I just felt like this is such a sad statement, don't you think?
Oh, yeah. I've been hearing this all over TikTok. People that have degrees, people that came from like elite universities that can't find even like the most basic, type of corporate job. And I think there's so many things at play here. I think part of it is these companies would never admit it. Um, but like, I think a lot of these jobs aren't real jobs. And I know we did that like at the companies I worked for, where we would put fake job postings just to make it look like we're always hiring and just to kind of see like who's out there, which is terrible because they're spending all this time going through this. And it also makes me think like, I don't know that I want to send my kid to college, because this seems to be a recurring theme where you can't get a job. Like, you're better off going to a trade school or starting a business. And especially with AI, they're probably replacing a lot of these jobs with AI, just like they replaced their HR department with AI. So it's really sad, but like that's where we're headed. And that's what Sam Altman's saying from, he's the CEO of OpenAI. He's saying that this AI is going to replace jobs, and like the tech jobs are the first to go. And so I don't even know that we're going to need job interviews, but he's been a big proponent of universal basic income. And I know like Elon Musk has talked about this a lot as well, because they both say that AI is going to basically take over pretty much every job, especially white collar jobs. Those will be the first to go. But he has this fresh new take on how we can actually use AI to provide it. And it's not really what you think. It's called universal basic compute instead of income. Okay. So the idea is that instead of the government giving people money, people would get a slice of ChatGPT 7's compute. So like a far more advanced AI. And he's saying they can sell it, donate it, or use it. And it would basically be like owning a piece of productivity of this advanced AI. So like I was thinking about it, I'm like, it actually could be far more valuable than a cash payment, because as AI grows, this could be a way to have basically like an AI assistant that like runs an entire business for you. And I'm sure the opportunities are endless for that. And it's one of those things where like it's going to be so advanced, you wouldn't even have to think about like, what business would I do? How would I start it? How would it run? Like the AI could literally do all the work for you. That's just my speculation of like one of the ways you could use it. But he's saying like you could also use the compute power for like cancer research and things like that. And on the episode where we discussed transhumanism and how like the elites would use this to have a slave class, maybe this universal compute income would be a way to like level the playing field, because instead of just the elite rich people having access to the technology, like everyone would have a piece of it. And so Altman brought this up on his podcast. And as far as I could tell, he doesn't have an official plan or anything like that. It was more just an idea that he mentioned. But he has tested out universal basic income in certain areas and hasn't shared the results. So he's basically given cash payments to people in certain areas and did all these studies, but he hasn't shared the results. And I'm guessing they weren't great or he would be sharing them. And now all of a sudden he's shifting to this idea of, instead of giving cash, giving compute power. So it's interesting, but while I'm glad that this AI CEO is considering basic income, since their product is basically going to replace a bunch of jobs, it also scares me because I think that he knows this is going to happen a lot sooner than we realize. And he also commented on how he doesn't think the government is doing a good job of addressing it. So, like, I don't know, but the other thing I thought of, Tara, is that you could use an AI assistant to be your translator while you're overseas. I mean, think how convenient that would be, right?
I probably could, except that I refuse to use AI. But I do want to point out something about what you just said. Like, while I can see how this could be used to level the playing field, at the same time, I don't think that would be allowed, because the way I see this, the government would be in control. And if you don't go along with the narrative, you don't get your piece of the compute pie, you know?
Yep.
So either if you want to partake, you have to do what we say. And
And
that
if you
still
don't,
leaves
you're a
us,
dissident and you can go eat
right.
bugs.
Yeah. And that still leaves us in the slave class either way.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're so
So
right.
yeah, sorry to be negative, but that's how I see it. Okay. So, okay, Stephanie, I cannot do an AI episode without talking about creepy fucking robots, right? So
Yep.
I need to ask you, have you heard about the latest development in reconfigurable soft robotics?
No, I have
Okay.
not. It sounds scary though.
Okay, it is basically like shape-shifting robotic slime. And I was reading this article in Interesting Engineering. It was describing how this technology is being developed at MIT, and researchers are creating robots with magnetic field control that allows them to squish, bend, or extend their entire body dynamically. And apparently, these researchers have created a special kind of algorithm that teaches the robot slime how to move and change form all by itself. So it can like stretch and morph into different configurations in order to accomplish whatever its task is and like fit into small spaces. And even though it hasn't been perfected yet, there did one test where the robot was able to adjust its height and grow tiny legs so that it could move through a narrow space. And then when it got through, it changed back to its original shape to reach up and open a lid. Like, I don't know about you, but that's fucking frightening.
It sounds like a sci-fi movie. Like, did you watch Stranger Things on Netflix?
Yes. Yes, of course.
Remember,
Yeah.
like that's what it did. It like
Yeah.
broke down into that slime and it could like fit
Mhm.
in the drains and it could like morph into like people. I mean, what the hell? But that's like a real thing. And that makes me think, okay, I remember a while back hearing this interview from this guy who wanted to remain anonymous. And he allegedly worked in Antarctica on this mission to understand more about that pyramid that they have there. And he said that when they went inside of it, like the walls and everything within the pyramid moved and morphed into different shapes as though it was like a living being. And he described it as like this black substance that could morph into anything and that it seemed almost intelligent. And so when I heard it back then, I kind of like dismissed it. I'm like, whatever, like that's so fake. But now I'm wondering if there wasn't some truth to that. And now they're like reverse engineering it and creating it. And that is terrifying.
Don't you also like start wondering now that if you look back at everything we've seen in sci-fi movies that's come true, and at the time you think, wow, these people are like super creative and imaginative, but maybe they weren't like coming up with this shit because it was already like they were already doing research into its existence and it was just forecasting and like foreshadowing the future.
Right. Well, and like our CIA has funding for Hollywood
Yeah.
because they like find out information and then they go and plant it for like subconscious conditioning and stuff. So but it's scary because it's like we always kind of knew that with respect to like culture or whatever, but I never thought about that with sci-fi because the sci-fi
Mhm.
stuff just seemed so out there. So like that's crazy. But I have like a whole other thing, and this could be an entire episode in itself. Like we could probably research this and talk about it for days. But have you ever heard of Project 2045?
No.
Okay, this is wild. So it started by this billionaire Russian entrepreneur, Dmitry Itskov, in 2011. And their main goal is to transplant human brains, including your consciousness, spirituality, thoughts, and memory, and put it into AI. And it sounds
Works.
crazy, but this guy is like, this is like a whole thing. I mean, there's so much money going into this. He's gotten a ton of press by everyone from the New York Times to BBC and the Daily Mail. And he already has a patient that has agreed to be the first human brain transplant into this AI. And like he has the money to hire all of these experts in science and technology. On his website, he's also encouraging people to continue like reaching out to the Forbes top 100 richest people just to get like more of the elite globalists on board. And so everyone needs to go check out this website because like I said, you could really go down the rabbit hole. The website is 2045.com. So the actual number is 2045.com. Watch the entire video on their homepage because it's the craziest freaking thing I've seen so far. And so just to give you a little taste, I'm going to play a clip from that video, and just this little clip like is wild. So listen to this.
Simulate complex systems, create humanoid robots and cyborgs, and with the help of nanorobots, we may develop manageable matter. Find ways to transfer one's personality to an artificial carrier. Yet what we need is not just another technological revolution, but a new civilizational paradigm. We need new philosophy and ideology, new ethics, new culture and new psychology, and even new metaphysics. We must reset our limits, go beyond ourselves, beyond the Earth, and beyond the solar system. This is an adequate response to the challenges of our time. Thus, new reality and future man will arise. Could it happen spontaneously, by itself? Unlikely. Humanity does not have a master.
Okay, so basically, they think that an adequate response is to change everything about us, our bodies, our psychology, our ideology, our metaphysics, our spirituality. Like they listed basically everything that makes us human and how we need to change it.
You know what else they're going to have to change? They're going to have to change the title of their program because I'm pretty sure that this is going to happen way before 2045. So it may be
Right?
like 2025 or at most 2035.
Well, they have a whole timeline set out for this. And I mean, like things that are happening are going according to this timeline. So I'm just like, wow, how have I not heard about this yet? When there's a website right there, you know, that tells you everything. But like basically, they want us all living in a hologram that's created by a combination of AI and our consciousness. Okay. And so while this sounds like totally crazy, you know, I get like into the declassified CIA documents and stuff, and I'm obsessed with the documents from the Gateway experience because they tie into like manifestation and meditation and all that kind of stuff. But in section 14, that's titled The Consciousness Matrix, it says, quote, the universe is composed of interacting energy fields, some at rest and some in motion. It is, in and of itself, one gigantic hologram of unbelievable complexity. So that's coming from these CIA documents that are suggesting that we live in a holographic universe, which is basically the simulation theory that Elon Musk is always talking about. And like, I was thinking about it. It's like, okay, Elon Musk, the guy who's like one of the richest people in the world, he has access to space. He's intertwined with the government because he's the biggest government contractor. And he thinks we live in a simulation. And everyone laughs it off. But it's like, if anyone was going to know, like, wouldn't it be him? Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I always laugh at him too, but it's like, I'm telling you, the more and more I see with AI, the more I'm like, wait a minute, like this could be a legitimate theory. So that brings me to a TikTok video that I saw a few weeks ago that has been on my mind nonstop ever since. So I think this is going to blow your mind. I'm going to play it and then you can let me know what you think.
So I was thinking about simulation theory. You know how the whole world and universe that we exist in is just one big simulation and we just don't realize it yet? You know, the scientists that talk about it and all that stuff, they say if you assume that we're on a trajectory to eventually come up with that good of a simulation that it's indistinguishable from reality, then one could also assume that once that happens, better and better simulations will go on infinitely. So the odds that we are living in the one first real world are practically nothing. Like the odds are way more in favor that we are living in a matrix style simulation. But then the pushback on the theory, you know, it always made sense. Like the amount of energy it would take to generate an entire universe is just next to impossible. Then I got to thinking, you know, video games, they're only rendering what you're directly pointing your character at, your avatar. All the other stuff that you think is behind you, the trees and the monsters and all that stuff, none of it exists until you turn the character's head to look at those things. And then those possibilities are made real in that frame of reference. Well, then I got to thinking, you know, that quantum physics experiment, you know, the double slit experiment, where it talks about how things like photons, they're simultaneously a wave and a particle. And they're really neither until you observe what's going on. And then the wave function collapses and a determined destination for each individual particle shows up. If you don't pay attention to the experiment, a wave pattern shows up. The moment you measure it and observe it, boom, single individual pinpoints.
Okay, so that like took all the theories that I've always heard about and kind of like put them all together. And I was like, oh my God, like that actually would make a lot of sense. Or am I just like a kooky TikTok conspiracy theorist?
No, because as I was listening to that, I was thinking about, you know, how you see all those videos about like the glitch in the matrix where people are literally recording, like, I'm sitting on the freeway and like all the cars are stopped and nobody's moving. And like, why am I the only one that notices everything has stopped? And it's like,
Yeah.
I've seen multiple videos of things like that, or like a bird drops out of the sky, or just weird shit that clearly shows we're living in some kind of matrix.
Right?
And
It's
so
like,
and then I start thinking like, maybe this is just like a Twilight Zone episode where it's a failed experiment and we're just being watched to see how much we could fuck it up before they hit the reset button and then like start over again.
yeah. Well, I think like, so someone that would be interesting to follow if anyone's not following him yet is Billy Carson. He talks about this stuff all the time. And I mean, when you look at like all these scientists that say at the very foundation of our universe, it's all just code, it's ones and zeros. Like this is proven, okay? Then another thing that they proved, which is really crazy, is that you can download information into our DNA. So like one little speck of blood, for example, you could download like a whole, I forget how much data, but it was like an enormous amount of data from like a whole entire book or something into like one little drop of DNA. And I was like, I don't understand that. Like I can't even comprehend it, but they're doing it. And that would explain how like all of these incredibly rich people that have all this money and can hire all these experts actually think that we can merge with AI. And I don't know, like, and then you think about how big the universe is, right? And they're saying it's infinite, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And I've never been able to like truly wrap my mind around that. But then when you look at it from like this perspective of like what that guy was talking about, it's like, okay, well, imagine like Mario Brothers is one universe, but then there's also like Donkey Kong, that's another universe. And then and it goes on and on and on and on. It's like, well, from that perspective, it makes total sense. And so I think the point that got me though, where he was like, we are on the verge of creating simulations that are damn near like perfect to reality. And when that happens, we're just going to keep creating them. And so the odds of us being in the original real reality are like next to nothing. Like that stuck with me, and it's all I can freaking think about. So now you guys have to think about it too, because it's driving me nuts. So anyhow, that's our AI episode. Got lots to think about, lots of good conversation starters if you want to scare off a new friend or coworker. And yeah, we'll keep everyone posted on the latest developments with that. So a nice little break from the Trump trials and all the other nonsense going on. But I hope everyone has a great rest of your week, and we'll see you back here on Friday. Thanks for tuning in.